It is Monday, April 4th, 2022. The Boiler Breakdown podcast is streaming live on the Boiler Breakdown Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitter page. If you're not already liking those pages, following, or subscribed, do so right now. And while you're listening to this, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a review and 5 stars. We really appreciate it. I'm Tanner Lee, along with my co-hosts, Evan Webb and Andrew Eiler. Fellas, it seems like it's been a long time since we've recorded one of these.
Well, there's a good reason for it. We've put this off long enough.
Yeah.
That's the off season, right?
Yeah,
It is.
This is our off season podcast. Yeah, nothing else to talk about.
Unlike baseball, when the real season begins, the off season this is definitely the dead period. But
it's transfer portal season. It's coaching carousel season.
Bad Mata season, baby.
Bad Mata season for Andrew and his Bulldogs. I guess at least he's not in the Big Ten anymore. But it's definitely portal season, transferring season, going to the NBA season, a little bit of everything. We were hoping to be playing in New Orleans tonight for the national championship, but wasn't meant to be.
If we look back at that last podcast, my gosh.
I know.
I almost went back and listened to it. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Because I remember some of the things we talked about, and I was like, oh, my God. I know, obviously, hindsight 2020, but it's just, I'm sure something I was thinking about, I was like, I'm sure there's something way worse that we talked about. I mean, I know we were talking about giving them respect, but I think we all deep down thought this is a 8 to 12 point win, and nope.
I would like to go back just for a funny, laughing point of view now, but
do it in 3 years or something.
Would you really be laughing?
Yeah.
No, probably not. Yeah. If I really want to painful, I'd go back and listen to the 2019 podcast after the Elite Eight. I remember doing that one.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest. St. Peter's Day, I was not nervous until about an hour before the game. Then I got nervous.
Yeah, I was. I mean, with it being a Friday, I mean, I was able to be distracted from work. But yeah, once I got home and everything, I was like, okay, I was starting to freak out a little bit.
I don't think I really worried until the second half, honestly, when I was more pissed off during the first half, but I'm like, okay, we'll settle in, figure it out.
Right.
And so I started to worry in the first half just because of just the way it started. I was like, man, we've seen these games before. If you don't, get the lesser, the weaker team down early, they're going to get their head up, and unless we can come out in the second half and just bury them right away, then this one is going to be tight. And sure enough, it's exactly what happened, because we did not come out looking good. A lot of turnovers and couldn't hit anything. I mean, Sasha was finally hitting for the first time really since maybe the IU game at home. I think it's the first game that he actually hit, looked good. But the problem is no one else played really all that well at all. Trey had a stretch where he played really well in the second half, but I mean, it was really the worst case scenario where, what's frustrating is we lost by 3 and everybody played awful. So it's if you just have one guy play a decent game, it's probably the difference maker, which is, you talk about frustration. I mean, a lot of frustrating losses where it was a lot of like that. And aside from the Michigan loss, you could point to, if we just did one or two things slightly better, just maybe a couple less turnovers, make a couple more threes than we did. We're looking at, 32 wins versus 29 potentially.
Yep. That's just kind of how the season went, the turnovers. I mean, it bit us every single loss, and it was something that just never got better really throughout the whole year. But you're right. Going into the St. Peter's game, I was thinking, I watched the game with my girlfriend. I was telling her, I think if we just play average, we win this game by decent amount.
You're right.
It didn't happen.
I mean, as hot as they were and everything, we kind of saw with their game against North Carolina. It's when the better team forces their will and comes out aggressive, they're a 15 seed for a reason. I mean, obviously they had their run. It was awesome. They beat Kentucky, which is nothing to, to scoff at, but it's just they're a 15 seed for a reason. You're talking about, a team or a school that's got, they have to cancel basketball practice because there's a yoga class in the same gym. Stuff like that is just so infuriating.
What was the other one where they were 10 years ago, the rim literally fell off.
It's just the stuff like that. That was what was so frustrating about watching the Carolina game. I was like, that's all Purdue needed to do was just come out and be aggressive.
Yeah.
It looked like in the Purdue game was just we kind of let them kind of dictate it early, and that's kind of really what sucks is like we've seen it before. We've gone out and like we pounded into Edey, and he just asserts his dominance and sets the tone. But it just felt like with this game, it was like we expected them to kind of be intimidated by our size or by our athleticism or whatever it is. And it's like this team beat Kentucky. Like that's probably the most athletic team in the country.
And Murray State, who's really
Murray
athletic.
State. Yeah. I mean, that Murray State team that won over 30 games. They were not going to be scared. I mean, the coach talked about it. He's like, he's got a bunch of guys from New Jersey and New York. Like those guys are not going to back down to anybody, like for better or for worse. Like they're tough dudes, and they showed it.
Yep. It just looked like we were timid. And that's one frustrating thing. I think that's been a consistent amongst most of Purdue's NCAA tournament losses, just coming out timid and playing timid. I mean, besides the Virginia game, we weren't timid that game. Carson was just being a beast. But a lot of our losses we've just come out and played timid, haven't played aggressive, haven't played our game. And I don't know, just sloppiness, like I said earlier, caught up to us. Jaden Ivey, unfortunately, and I know has taken a lot of slack and slander from the Purdue fan base. He just had arguably his worst game of his career in the worst moment he could.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was all his fault. I mean, he wasn't getting any help.
Edey did not play well. Edey couldn't hang on to the ball.
Nope. I mean, you had multiple times where he would kick out to a wide open guy and just shots just weren't falling. Like a few of those go. Yeah. Maybe it spreads the floor a little bit more. I don't know if it does or not. They were pretty dead set on clogging the paint. But I mean, he didn't help himself. I mean, it was very uncharacteristic of him. I mean, you saw him get visibly. I mean, we've seen him get visibly frustrated, but he was like, it was almost on another level. I don't know if it was just the moment or what was going on. But I mean, there's that one which I thought was Trey's fault, where Trey set a pick and did not act like he was going to roll. Then he didn't roll, and Jaden thought he was going to roll, so he threw the ball, and it was a turnover. And you could see like they just got into a shouting match. But it was just, it was really the worst possible timing for all that to all kind of come together, and it did. I mean, looking back at hindsight 2020 again, I mean, and I kind of thought about this now, which it's easy to say now because we lost. But when I was making my bracket, obviously I thought we were going to play Kentucky in the Sweet 16, but I was like, I don't know if this team can string together 4 games of, no turnover, of low turnovers. Like we didn't really see it a whole lot during the season. We had that 6-game winning streak there kind of in the middle, but they weren't always against the best teams. And some of them about cost us because of turnovers, with thinking about the Maryland game or the Ohio State game. But I remember in my head, I was like, I just don't know if I can see this team putting together that many games in a row of mistake, mistake-free back. Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's as mistake-free as you can be. And I mean,
theoretically, they got the break. I mean, you got a 15 seed in the Sweet 16.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. The bracket broke their way for once.
Yeah. That's obviously
average.
Yeah. Even that's what's so frustrating when you see as a fan base of just, it was finally there. Like we didn't have to play the 1 seed. We didn't have to play, did not play Kentucky. It was one of the 2 teams that I did not want to see in the tournament, that in Arizona, just because of their athleticism and size. And it was like, holy crap, we got a 15 seed against to potentially play, a team we've already beat, or UCLA, which is, I mean, they're a 4 seed and they're good, but they're a 4 seed and we're the 2 seed. And
on the wrong side of history yet again.
Yep. I guess that's also the bigger narrative too. Is just the last couple losses. We've lost to multiple double-digit seeds, and I know. Yeah. We're to pinpoint that.
When I knew we were really in trouble, where I felt like we were going to lose, besides any obvious point, was we were up 4. Jaden was driving the lane, looked like for a layup, maybe. It might have been contested a little bit, but lost the ball out of bounds. Mm-hmm. And then the very next possession, Sasha fouls on a 3-pointer. Mm-hmm. They hit all 3 free throws to go down. They cut the deficit to 1. Right then, I thought we were toast. Yeah, we couldn't keep them off the line the last 5 minutes.
Nope. You had the play with Gillis. At the time I was like, at least I was mad, but I was also like, he dove for the ball, which really wasn't really. I'm not even diving. I mean, I know he was diving for the ball, but there was no clear path to the ball whatsoever. So he just jumped on the dude and got a foul call, which again sent them back to the line. But it was like, okay, do you get mad but he's hustling, but it's also like that was just a dumb play, I feel like. And I think he's done that where like he's just overly aggressive. I mean, he's the reason Sasha hurt his hand because he was being a bit overly aggressive in the Wisconsin game. I mean, but at the same time, it's like he's about one of the few guys who is always aggressive, which is I think this team's biggest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of a narrative that we saw a lot with these four seniors. As much as I love those guys and loved watching them, but you kind of saw it in 2019, 2020 when we thought the leadership was going to be Harms and No Gel Eastern, but it was like, those four guys of Trey, Sasha, or those three guys, I guess, Trey, Sasha. I guess you also could throw Wheeler in there too. And those guys, they weren't really, they're like we've always talked about, like they're nice guys, but none of them really had that killer instinct where they're the ones who played bulk of the minutes and on the rest of the team. And we saw the struggles that season too, because we probably weren't going to make the tournament. It was pretty obvious we weren't going to. And I kind of saw a lot of the same narrative this year, just for the fact that we had Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey, our two best players, were sophomores, which I think is also another problem. It was that these guys got too good too fast and just we didn't have enough time to really gel. And unfortunately, we're not going to see Jaden Ivey's best basketball in a Purdue uniform because he is going to be phenomenal.
Let's hope we see Zach Edey's best. Hopefully he's back. I think he'll definitely test NBA waters, but I think it'd be a mistake for him to go. But maybe that's just the Purdue fan in me.
My brother and I were talking about this. It was kind of unfortunate that Ivy became like such the slasher and driver he was, because when you've got Trevion and then Edey getting so good as well. But probably 2 years ago, Painter thought this is going to be Trevion's team. Centered.
Yeah, because this is supposed to be Zach's first year because he's supposed to redshirt last year.
But really, like those two guys clogging the lane didn't help Ivy at all.
No. That's why I say, like, I just laugh at people who say like Ivy's not ready for the NBA. Like, look what he's done. It's like you obviously don't watch the NBA because the NBA game is so much different. Like, there's so much more space. The floor's bigger first and foremost, but you've got so many, like, all the bigs there can shoot and can pick and pop and pick and roll. It's like that's what was so frustrating. And it's also too like, okay, like is that going to the whole Painter conversation was like, does he could he design a better offense around Ivy? But I don't. The only person who could have really done that would have been Harms, which he wasn't going to be on this team regardless, or Caleb First, but you don't expect a freshman to come in there and do that right away.
Well, Harms technically could have.
I guess he
could have been on this team with the COVID year.
Yeah, which
weird.
Yeah, but we would have had to lose another guy too. Like probably would have lost probably wouldn't have gotten to Trey Kaufman-Renn, or maybe not even gotten Caleb First or something. But
Edey wouldn't maybe play as much.
Yeah. But yeah, it sucks that that's kind of we talked about it kind of off air of I think Ivy got really good really fast because when he committed it was like, man, Ethan Morton, Jaden Ivey Jr. year, that's the year, man. And then it's like, nope. Not gonna have that at all, which sucks. But
hey, I think after Swanigan, when I was like, man, Purdue's never gonna have a Player of the Year candidate again, and like this was the peak. Like if it wasn't this year, then never. Purdue's.
Oh yeah,
Purdue's not gonna have a lottery pick for a while, most likely.
Yeah, we kind of talked about last podcast. I remember last podcast was like I remember when we had Biggie and we lost to Kansas. It was like, man, if we're not gonna go to the Final Four this year, like we had like the best, the most dominant guy in all of college basketball, and we couldn't even, we got shellacked by what felt like 50
in a home
Kansas
game.
Back in a home game for Kansas.
But then Oregon beat them the next game. So.
Yeah, they couldn't throw it in the ocean. Yeah. But then it was like, okay, man, if not now, then when? Then 2019 happened. It was like, man, if we don't have, if we couldn't do it with the most, which someone pointed this out the other day, and it almost broke me. But it was like, I'm gonna regret saying this on the air now, but in that Virginia game, when the clock hit 0, Purdue was winning, which in the regulation because they made it after the buzzer. I was like, I didn't even think about that. That makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
It was like, if we couldn't do it then with Carson, the most electric guard in all of basketball, when we're going to do it. And then now kind of same thing with Jaden. But I think it just shows that Painter's recruiting on a whole new level. And it's only, he'll get there.
I still think it's going to be a year we don't expect it.
Yeah.
I think too many people expected it this year. I don't think this team, the staff, media covering the team, the fans at times, I don't think we had fun this year.
No,
but Evan, I thought you took this year a lot better than a lot of us because you kept harping, enjoy this ride, enjoy one game at a time, enjoy Jaden Ivey while you can. And like, that's why, this season was disappointing definitely, and you don't have a Big Ten regular season title, Big Ten tournament title, deep March Madness run to show for it. But I know you've been outspoken how you really still enjoyed watching this team.
I did, yeah. I tried to, and now if I would have been a student right now, I would have been one of the most miserable people probably on the planet had I been a student right now, because I thinking back
Would
to
still
how
rather
it was.
be a student now than 14th place in both football and basketball like we were when we were there. So
You're not wrong, but yeah, it's just that, like, I think the whole Carson thing, like watching Carson and I'm just like, man, like, and especially with Ivy, like I've said it, I tweeted it too. I think Ivy might be my favorite player I've ever seen at Purdue. I know he's polarizing with people. I don't understand. I mean, I get part of it, but also I don't understand it at all. It's like we've never seen this type of talent at Purdue where it's, he's the type of guy that when I watch other teams, I'm like, man, is Purdue ever gonna get a guy like that? Like where he's just super athletic. It's usually the lunch pail guys. It's the 3-star guys or maybe low 4-star who had to prove everybody wrong. Guys like Vince Edwards, who I love Vince Edwards, but he wasn't the most athletic. He was just a solid player. He was a great college player. Not gonna, like I say, he wasn't on anyone's lottery pick draft board anywhere close. I mean, even Caleb Swanigan. I mean, he was wasn't even close to a lottery pick, and he was one of the best players in college basketball. Should have been player of the year. But it's like we've got a legit, like, there's a legitimate chance that Jaden Ivey could be number 1 pick. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a legitimate chance. And I really enjoyed watching him. I said it was just so cool to see that type of athleticism. And I think just similar to Carson, I think he had a lot of good publicity for Purdue. That's only going to hopefully get other types of guards like that. I don't know if without Jaden Ivey, I'm not sure we get a Drayvon Gibbs Lawhorn. I'm not sure if without Carson, we don't get Jaden. So it's just kind of a trickle down effect. Yeah, ripple effect, trickle down effect. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I tried to enjoy it. I mean, it was frustrating at times, the Ohio State game of blowing leads, but I just remember like some of the, I thought there were a lot of fun moments. I remember watching the North Carolina game, the Villanova game. I thought those games were so much fun, being in Mackey and just hearing the crowd, for one, being in Mackey for the first time since 2019, 2020 was fun. But I thought there was a lot of fun moments, obviously frustrating, but yeah, it's kind of what Mooney says here. It's, I think, yeah, there's just so much expectation. I mean, I look back to last year, which this team was identical to last year's team. Last year was, as a whole, was probably more fun, but it was because we had zero expectations. So it was like anytime we won, it was like sweet. But now it's like this year we win. It's like, okay, we were supposed to, but we didn't win. We didn't cover. We won by 1. We should have won by 15. So it's like always it's something to
something to complain about.
But yeah.
I'll admit after January, I did not have a whole lot of fun. It was very stressful.
It was stressful. And there's times like after a loss or a close win, I'm like, God, like, can we just get to March, see what happens? But
that's what sucks too, is like kind of almost like wishing the season away.
I know.
It's just like because I kind of got to the same way too. It's just like, just get to March, stay healthy, like just get to March, and then we'll see what happens. But it's like, man, like now looking back, it's like I wish I didn't think that, because it was just now, because as soon as the season ends, I wasn't really mad. It's over. Yeah, I was mad during the game, but like once it ended, like there was no anger in me whatsoever. It was just like sadness, seeing Trey super
defeated.
Upset. Oh yeah, I felt defeated.
I didn't even play.
Yeah, I was just super sexed. I was like, I'm never gonna see this team ever again.
Yep.
This nucleus. I'm never gonna watch Jaden Ivey in a Purdue uniform ever again. I'm never gonna watch Trayvon Williams. I know Andrew used to, he's one of your favorite players. Tanner, you said the same thing. He's one of my favorite players ever. And I did not think that when he came to Purdue.
Nope.
I remember talking to our good friend Aaron Lynch, who, when Sasha Stefanovic committed, he said he's never going to play for Purdue. And I'm like, but thinking back to that, and it's like, I think, and is he the first player to redshirt that actually completed every single year at Purdue? I think he, at least, did Ryan Smith redshirt?
No. Should have, but he didn't.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't remember a redshirt player finishing all 4 years after his redshirt year at Purdue, because usually they'll, like, Aaron Wheeler transferred.
Right. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. But I was thinking the other day, how different it is when a college basketball season ends compared to a college football season. It might be different if Purdue somehow, someday, ever makes a college football playoff. And
if they make playoffs, I don't even care. Like, I'm going to be.
But even then, I'm like, woo! Like, we're one of the 4 best teams. Like, this is awesome. I don't even. It's just gravy if we get the championship. But the difference is, even if Purdue had a good season like they did in football this year, 9-4, they won 8 games in the regular season. It was great. We still had to wait darn near a month before the bowl game.
And it's the last one. And it's like, also,
you already know.
You're throwing the fact that, we don't have David Bell. We don't have George Karlaftis. Like, let's just not get smacked. Like, let's just have fun.
Right.
Let's not have a repeat of 2018 with Auburn.
100%.
Where it's like,
100%.
I mean, I've said it multiple times, but as soon as Selection Sunday hits, I am just a ball of anxiety. Like I hate it. Like I love it, but I hate it. I mean, it's so much more fun this year. Like this year specifically, like watching the first round game, the first day of the Thursday, we played on Friday, but then we win on Friday. It's like sweet. So Saturday is just like best day ever because you've got a full day of games. You don't have to worry about Purdue playing. Worry about it until the next day. But yeah, it's just when that game day hits, it's just the amount of anxiety I have is awful.
I think the only like negative part I like better about college basketball over college football is after I lost college basketball, you usually have a game in the next few days. College football, it's 2 on it for a week. That's the only difference.
And then a couple buys in there too, when it might be 2 weeks.
That's true. Yeah.
Football,
when you lose the PJ Fleck and the boat rowers and you get
there's only
off.
and only 12 games instead of 35.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas if you have a week off in basketball, it's like thank God they have a week off. They can rest.
They can get
practice.
Healthy,
If you did lose, it's like thank God they have a week to actually practice.
Yeah.
Like we saw this year, where just like they were playing so many games, they didn't have time to actually practice. It was all just prep for the team. But it was like they could actually work on something to fix what's going on with what was going on. But
So, all good talking points. Purdue team next year in 2022, 2023 is going to look a whole lot different. I mean, you're graduating 3 seniors who played and a walk-on. Jaden Ivey's going pro, and Isaiah Thompson, we found out last week, has entered a transfer portal.
Yeah, that it surprised me a little bit. It also, I mean, it does and doesn't.
Same.
I mean, it always sucks because Isaiah was a guy that I was critical of. I mean, I feel a lot of Purdue fans were. He's a point guard type of player, but yet I'm not even sure how many. Let's see how many assists he actually.
I know he had that. What was the 8th game stretch? He only had 10 points at a key stretch in the Big Ten. In most of those games, he wasn't even shooting. It's like, man.
Yeah, he had 35 assists the entire season, so less than 1 a game.
He did play good against Villanova and at Iowa.
He did, when our offense was unstoppable.
Yeah.
Which is another frustrating part is we've never really seen a Painter team peak in November, which is very weird.
Yeah.
Whereas we were good and then we didn't really get any better. If anything, we can say we got worse because we weren't blowing teams out and scoring 90 points every night. But I was critical of Isaiah. I think, obviously rightfully so, because there would be games where he'd play 15 minutes and not have a single stat. It's like, how do you play 15 minutes and not have anything? Like, didn't take a shot, didn't have an assist, didn't have a rebound. But when he transfers, when I saw the announcement, I felt really sad. It's like, oh man, I wish I wasn't as critical of him, because I love every player that plays for Purdue for the most part, at least recently. Maybe when we were in school, it was a little different story. But it just kind of sucks. It's like, man, I hope you hope it wasn't which I don't think it ever is, but you hope the fan reaction isn't the reason why a kid transfers. But Painter's pretty open with these guys. He probably told them, hey, we're looking for a transfer guard, and that's obviously going to affect his potential. Obviously we could see, hopefully we don't lose Brandon Newman. It sounds like he might be staying, but we still got a ways to go with this crazy transfer season.
And Purdue's recruiting guards, and maybe that changes.
Yeah,
what Newman's thinking too, unfortunately. But yeah, what is PJ? His brother was a grad. Was he a grad assistant?
No, so he was actually on staff now. Yeah. I think he had a 2-year commitment or something. I think.
And he was one day. Brian Newbert from Golden Black was even mentioning if we lost his name, Terry Johnson.
Terry Johnson.
Yeah.
If we lost him to Butler, which isn't going to happen now, that PJ could have been promoted. So, which is interesting.
Okay.
So
I was wondering, because I think the grad assistants, they only can be in that position for a max
for 2 years. That's Spike and Tommy Luce right now.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if PJ was in that position, and then
he was. He and
Grady
Eifert, who's now on Penn State staff. So it's unfortunate. Seems like a good kid. I'll be rooting for him wherever he goes. Maybe it's a Butler or Ball State or Indiana State. I don't know. I'm sure he's going to get better offers than he had coming out of high school.
Yes.
Besides Purdue.
Yeah. Because he's proven he can hit shots at the Big Ten level.
But we got a good recruiting class coming in. Mr. Basketball, which was announced over the weekend, Westfield guard Braden Smith, runner-up Homestead guard Fletcher Lawyer, 7'1" or maybe 7'2", European big man William Berg,
Maybe he can grow a few more inches so we can continue the trend of getting taller.
And a little pick and pop game with him.
Yeah.
And then Camden Heidi. I always butcher his name. He went to prep school out in Utah.
Yeah, was from Minnesota.
And I forget about him. He's the missing piece of the recruiting class. I forget about
him too. Actually, I was like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting about him too.
Adding
but then also talk about your redshirt guys of Trey Kaufman-Renn and Brian Waddell, which Brian's kind of coming off that torn ACL, and I know Trey Kaufman had that foot injury, which sounds like he's 100% healthy. But yeah, we're gonna have 6 newcomers
at least.
Hopefully
8.
Probably 8, yeah, which is wild.
And no seniors unless grad transfer or something. Yeah,
right. So Webby, why don't you fill in as you're taking a drink of beer? Great timing on my part here. Why don't you fill everybody in on some of the guys in the portal that Purdue's supposedly looking at?
God, there's so many. Well, the list starts and stops with Nigel Pack.
Yes,
he's
visiting this week, right?
Visiting this week supposedly. From Indianapolis, played at Lawrence Central. Yeah, Lawrence Central. Definitely, it sounded like it was a guy that Purdue looked at seriously, but he played on the same AAU team as Ivy in first with Indy Heat. He's only 6 feet, so there was that. We had just taken Isaiah Thompson in the previous class. It's like you really want to have 2 short guards on your team. But it sounds like we actually seriously recruited him out of high school, which is more so than probably a lot of schools did.
I think Ivy and Morton committed, and that kind of
that too. We didn't have that. We didn't have that many. We only had 2 spots available, and we took 2 guards essentially. So it was kind of tough to take 3 guards in that class. And so I went to. I don't know if this. I thought I read somewhere. I think Brian said that Painter might have even introduced Pack to Weber.
Yeah.
So that hopefully bodes well for us on the flip side. But he freaking tore it up this year. All Big 12. Kansas State didn't make the tournament, but I mean he shot like 40% from 3. Plays good defense. I think he averaged about I think it's like 17 points in the Big 12, which is what Ivy averaged in the Big 10. I think right now he's rated like anybody even coming out of high school or college. He's like the number 1 prospect because he's gonna have every school coming after him,
which is scary because of the NIL money out there.
Oh, of course, yeah. But you hope the draw being close to hometown. Obviously the connection between Painter and Weber. I feel like if Weber's going to go on a limb for anybody, it's going to be Painter, considering he also hired him at one point to be on his staff. So that's if we can get Packed, that would be. It really changes the expectation, I think, of next season because we need a ball dominant guard. We also need a scoring guard with losing Ivy. There's a transfer from Princeton. Was it Lewin? Is that his last name?
Lewin, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. It's like 3 L's in there.
Yeah, there's a kid from Indiana State, Key, who actually didn't play this last year because of injury, but he's got his. That's just what's funny about these transfers is you saw with Pack, and you're going to see with probably Thompson. Is you get all these kids who had nothing coming out of high school, but now they've got Gonzaga and Arizona coming after them just because they've proven they can. Which it makes sense. Right. They've proven, which also kind of sucks for some of these kids that come out of high school because they're not getting the same opportunity now because it's just now free agency with teams trying to rebuild completely from the transfer portal. There's a kid from Bellarmine that we were looking at. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Yeah,
Penn. Yes.
Penn? Yeah.
Kid from Drexel, right?
Kid from Drexel. The Bellarmine kid worries me because he's like a career 28% 3-point shooter, and we need a consistent 3-point threat because we've got some guys who can shoot, but nothing that really proven. I think Morton's probably our best shooter.
We do have an incoming freshman. I know he's a freshman, but just won the national 3-point competition.
Yeah, but still, you think.
Newman's a good shooter.
That's Newman.
It was at least he was in high school or supposedly coming out of high school.
And I'll feel pretty fortunate if Isaiah Thompson's the only player Purdue loses to the portal.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Big Ten schools are losing multiple.
Mm-hmm. And then a name that we're all familiar with Mr. Rob Finney is a potential, which
I don't know how to feel about that.
Would you? Yes or no, Tanner? On the spot, yes or no?
No.
If we get Pack, yes. If we get Pack, yes. Just because
good
feel
answer.
Because with Finney, I feel like for one, I really like the kid coming out of high school.
He does seem like a good kid.
Yeah, he plays good defense. He pretty good with the ball. He can get to the hoop. He's bigger, so it's like I feel like he's a slight upgrade over Isaiah, except for the fact that Isaiah shoots a lot better than he does. But maybe it's a mental thing, change of scenery. Maybe he can shoot a little bit better in a
lower volume. I don't know how much
volume. Yeah. But it sounds like he does have some. He can disappear, so it's kind of maybe a mental game with him. But again, maybe he also was coached by Archie Miller for 3 years, so
killed his confidence.
It killed his confidence. Obviously we saw what he showed some potential, obviously against us. So maybe that was his tryout for the team. But I like the idea. I know my fiance, she was devastated when I told her that Purdue was actually considering looking at it. She's like, he can't go to Purdue. He just can't go to Purdue.
And I will say, Matt Painter has kind of went out of his way and talked about him quite a bit over the last 4 years. You don't see him do that about too many opposing players.
I wonder if part of that is because he's from West Lafayette. Probably a lot of the same coaches, the same. We're keeping those whatever. He didn't come here. That's
it was true.
So
Could be.
When I was at the, it's probably nothing, but when I was at the Purdue IU game for senior ceremonies, 2 IU players came out, and it was Finney and Galloway. They both came out and sat and watched senior ceremonies. Obviously, their families out there, and Finney had probably 8 people there with him, which you would expect being a Lafayette kid. He was there when Painter was giving a speech, and Painter was saying some very complimentary things about our guys. So maybe he's not used to getting that down south.
Well, is it he and Isaiah, or he and Hunter real tight?
So Isaiah was tight with
Franklin, wasn't it?
Armand Franklin. Him and Franklin were best friends, because that was kind of the thing that supposedly that Archie and the staff, they kind of played Isaiah against Armand. So it was man, your best friends going there. You guys are the same position. You both can't play at the same time. And that's why Armand went to IU supposedly, but now he's at Virginia.
Missing 110 threes. I think he missed over 100 threes this year.
Yeah, which because he was a really good shooter last year, which is wild. But yeah, I don't know if he was tight with anybody. I think he played Indiana Elite, I believe. Okay. So I don't know. We don't really have many kids who come from Indiana Elite aside from
I must be
and Ryan
not
Klein.
Remembering that correctly.
But he's definitely. If we only had one spot, I don't think. It'd be kind of it'd be cool, but it wouldn't be the best fit. As some people said, it might be a lazy pick because we've got the relationship with him already and we know the kid. But yeah, obviously, if you can get Nigel Pack, I think he'd be a good complimentary piece. But it also depends on, I don't know what he's looking for. Is he looking for starter minutes? Because I'm not sure if he would get that if he came to Purdue or not.
Maybe he just wants to win.
Add a wrinkle in the rivalry.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I know Ryan was talking about. It's we've seen it in football, but football is weird. Because these guys do it so early in their career. Maybe they haven't played yet, but it's everybody on both sides know who Rob Finney is, and people love him down there. He's a great kid. He's known as Big Shot Rob because he hit a great shot against Butler his freshman year in the Crossroads. He obviously hit great shots against Purdue. Like I said, he seems like a really good kid, pretty quiet. But it's man, if he goes to Purdue and in that first game, in Bloomington, I don't think he'll get a very warm welcome at all, and that could be awkward because I'm sure obviously you're tight with the guys on the team, but yeah, that could be because like I said, football is one thing, but basketball, Purdue IU basketball is a whole different ballgame. Yeah,
and he played twice.
Yeah.
We should go screenshot some of those IU fans' replies to him right now, just in case he goes to Purdue, and then if he has a good game, gets a Deanna, remember you were saying nice things about when he left. IU legend.
Yeah, well, it's just funny because when he put his name in transfer portal, I did see some replies was anywhere but Purdue, anywhere but Purdue.
Yeah,
but
it's
there's a ton of guys. Yeah, the portal is so weird because there's so many guys out there.
Free agency.
It's free agency.
I was saying this on my one of my other podcasts I do earlier tonight. I'm coming to terms with the portal. I don't necessarily like it. It is taking away some of my enjoyment for college sports. I'm always going to love college sports first and foremost, basketball, football, but it is taking a little bit of enjoyment away from me just because it is free agency. It is who can pay, in a lot of scenarios, who can pay the most money, the NIL deals, yada, yada. But I'm getting used to it, so we might as well just hope that your favorite school can take advantage of it.
It'll be interesting because Painter's he's done the grad transfer route.
Sure.
But it'd be interesting to see because a lot of people get on Painter because he's stuck in his ways, but I don't believe that either. We've seen him change quite a bit as a coach over the years, but it's this is something he's going to have to do. I know he wants to build through recruiting, which you can, but I mean, there could be one year we have 3 guys in the portal or 4 guys. I mean, you never know. But if we can get a guy like Pack, I think it could go a long way, because that shows that, these top guys are still picking Purdue. So,
do you think Matt feels the pressure of Final Four?
Yeah, I think he does. I don't know how you don't.
I don't either, especially.
But also, I mean, there's so much going on where I'm sure like day-to-day stuff where it's like, it's there, but also like I'm sure he's really good about like one day at a time sort of thing, where it's us fans have nothing else to do with our lives, where we're just like, oh, like, man, like, I don't think he sits there like, at night or, sitting there at his desk during the day. It's like, man, we haven't been to a Final Four since 1980. It's like, versus someone like us who, when we're bored at work, that's how we, let our minds wander and be sad. Yes. But it's like, where he can actually do something about it and, make the adjustments. But yeah, it's tough. And I mean, the cop-out answer is it's such a fluky tournament. Like,
it is.
But it's like, okay, we've seen George Mason, we've seen Butler twice, we've seen VCU. It's like, why I was talking about my friend who's a Tennessee fan. It's like, why? Like, our team, both of our programs have been pretty solid for the most part, and yet here we are, not in the Final Four once again. They've never been to the Final Four.
They've never been to the Final Four,
which is wild. It's just like, yeah, it's frustrating, but I think that's what made this year so much worse. It was just, it's like, oh, like it was there, but like you said, like we'll get to there at some point and better be surprised than.
Yep. You got. I understand losing Sweet 16 more times than not is frustrating. Don't get me wrong. I was heated about it afterwards. I'm still a little heated about it just because of who we lost to, how we lost, etc. But it's still my goal every time in tournaments, get to that Sweet 16 round, weekend. And eventually you're going to kick that door down, not just to the Elite Eight, but further. I mean, keep getting yourself chances. It's eventually going to happen.
Because that was an argument early on. Which is, yes, that I know, like, a perceptible at work. Never. That's, well, you're a better man than me. That was like that was the one knock against Painter. The early, maybe like the late, 2009, 2010. It was like, man, he gets to a Sweet 16 every 3 years, or once every 4 years, and then we play the 1 seed and get our teeth kicked in. But it's like, now we're getting to the point where we're getting there pretty consistently. So it's like, that's the next step. If I get there, we've got a buddy who's an Illinois fan who they haven't been there since 2005. Is that right? 2005, Illinois hasn't been there.
Yeah.
So it's like,
this is their first title since 2005, and
it's like, you look at that, it's like, okay, I know we're frustrated, but it's like, it could be a lot worse. And it's like, I understand, I get frustrated with it. I hate, the fact that we're like 1-5 in the Sweet 16 with Painter, but it's like, we're like you said, we're get there.
Yep.
And it's a whole new weekend. So just win 2 games at a time. That's all I can really do.
Well, and I don't want to compare us to other programs, but Iowa hadn't been Sweet 16, even to a Sweet 16. I don't know how
they had a Player of the Year last year.
Yeah, Ohio State's had tons of good players under Holtman. He can't get to Sweet 16. Indiana, besides their run in 2002, they haven't been past Sweet 16.
Though they went there and.
They've got there with their best team.
They haven't passed.
Then they ran into a Syracuse zone.
Or North Carolina in 2016.
I mean, Michigan State and Michigan have. Wisconsin had those 2 years where they got to the Final Four national championship game. But, I mean, the Big Ten, throw out a few teams, their tournament success has been garbage since 2000.
Yeah. So just keep getting there.
Yep.
Whole new season once you get there, and we'll break through one of these times.
Got a question here on Facebook from Topher. Any big man in the portal we go after if Edey leaves?
I haven't read anything. I don't. Yeah, I can't imagine we're looking at it right now. I think he's pretty focused on the guards because that's the most important position right now. Maybe if he gets a sense that. Maybe it's weird because you see all these, these tweets from like John Rossi and guys are like, oh, such and such player has heard from these programs.
Right.
Like, okay, what does that mean? Is that like serious consideration, or is that a coach texting saying, hey, can we talk, sort of thing?
Right.
It's like, what is that? What does hearing from
actually
mean? Because like some of these guys are hearing from every program under the sun, which, I mean, And part of it sucks too is you wanted some of these kids that they love the recruiting process so much because it's like, man, everybody's all eyes on me sort of thing, which I'm sure it's fun.
And NIL once again, who can pay me the most?
Yep.
So, yeah. And I think we'll see Caleb first play a lot more of the 5 next year.
Yeah, and that was because we kind of walked around and be like, people complain about Painter, whether it's his style, which I still don't. People saying he's never changed. Go watch a game from 2009 and tell me that's the year. The team we just saw this year is completely different than what we saw in 2009. Like in terms of style of play, he's completely changed how he goes about it. It used to be all defense and getting some offensive skill, but now it's all offensive skill. But I do think, maybe it is time to not maybe go after the lumbering big man as much. This William Berg, he looks pretty agile. I mean, I think if we had Matt Harms on this team, it would have been pretty fun to watch just because of his. Obviously he had a shot blocker. He had a guy who could roll. He had the threat to shoot. So there was that. I would love. That's what you kind of see. Like you don't see really like any of these. I guess Armando Baycott's 6'11" for North Carolina, but it's like I kind of was watching the Final Four. I was like, man, you don't really see these. Guys who are just sitting their butt in the post and just sitting there. Man, I think there's a kid for Kansas who's big, but I don't know if he can shoot. I haven't really watched a whole lot of Kansas this year, but you don't really see the the massive centers anymore than teams that make it far in the tournament.
Right.
But it's also like then the counter argument is Painter, like he plays to win the Big Ten, because if you win the Big Ten, then you set yourself up for a good shot in the tournament. It's like It's like if you are playing for the tournament but you're an 8 or 9 seed, you're not really setting yourself up for success, because then you're playing most likely the 1 seed in the second round and may not be the best.
Yeah. It seemed like Carolina, they're low with talent. They underachieved all year long. They had a home game in February. I think it was like February 16th. They lost to Pittsburgh. And on that day, it looked like they weren't going to make the tournament. And then they just get in the tournament. They actually got waxed by Virginia Tech after they won at Cameron Indoor. Got waxed by Virginia Tech in the ACC tournament. So they're kind of hobbling in as a 8 seed, and then they just happen to get hot. So it just happens.
Such is March.
Yep. Such is March. But I know Andrew's away from the screen right now, but I know you had a couple kind of fun statistical trivia questions.
I was gonna look at, so wait, where I pull up here. Who do you think, let's see here. That's all I wanted. Where was it? Here we go. Who do you think shot the second most free throws?
Well, 3 guys come to mind right away: Edie, Williams, and Ivy. I think Edie shot the most, so I'm going to go with Travion shot the second most.
Ooh, wrong. So Jaden shot the most.
Oh, okay.
207.
Wow.
Edie was second with 174.
So I was way off.
Trey was third with 124. So Edie shot 50 more free throws.
And Jaden played more than Zach. Now that makes sense in my head. But Zach just got fouled so much.
Yeah. So in terms of minutes played, you had Jaden and Sasha played the most minutes. And then Eric played the third most. Who do you think played the fourth most minutes on the
Mason
season?
Gillis.
You are correct. And then who do you think played more between Trey and Zach?
I'm going to go Zach.
Do I give an answer, Andrew? Who played more minutes this year between Trey and Zach? Total for the year.
Trevion.
It is Travion.
Yeah, a guy comes out off the screen. I didn't hear anything. Gets it right. I'm like 1 for 3 right now.
Yeah, Travion played 744. Zach played 703.
Ask Andrew those 2 I missed.
Oh God, what were they? Okay, yeah. So Jaden shot the most free throws on the team. Who do you think shot the second and third most?
Edie and Trevion.
In that order, correct.
He asked me who shot the most. I guessed Edie. So
yeah. Let's see here. So Edie led the team in blocks. Guess how many blocks he had on the year?
30.
Let's say like 47.
46.
Oh my god!
If you asked me that question, I would have said like 15 because I don't remember like him ever blocking shots.
I think there's a lot of like
I think a lot of them just push
Yeah,
back
yeah,
down,
yeah,
not like he didn't swat like Harms and yell.
Yeah.
AJ.
Let's see here. Who shot percentage-wise? Who shot the best from three?
Eric Hunter.
Isaiah.
So Tanner, you said
Hunter.
Eric, and Tanner or Andrew said Isaiah. You are both wrong. You got the second and third place. Number one, Ethan Morton.
Oh yeah, he did make like 9 of 10.
He actually, let's see, he was 15 of 34. But Eric was second with 43.6. Ethan, I'm not sure if I said Ethan was 44.1, and Isaiah was 42.4. Yep. So Travion Williams shot 35.7%, and Jaden Ivey shot 35.8% from three.
Jeez.
How many did Trevion shoot?
He shot 14. Was 5 of 14 on the year.
Did Edie take a single three?
No,
I didn't think so. I was kind of hoping he.
The three players who did not attempt a three were Matt Frost, Zach Edie, and Chase Martin.
There was one game that Edie, I forget where we were playing. We were up by a lot. He thought about it once, I remember, and the crowd was yelling for him to shoot it at home, and Painter wasn't having that.
Yeah. Trying to think what else. So Ivy scored the most points on the year. Who scored the second most?
I'm going with Williams.
Yeah, I like Trevion.
Edie.
God, I suck.
He scored 90 more points than Trey.
Jeez.
90?
90.
Fuck. Wow. 3 points more a game. Basically.
Yeah. Who scored out of the guys who actually played, who scored the least amount of points?
Caleb first.
You
want to say him or Morton? I'm going to go Morton.
It is Ethan Morton. He scored 90 points.
And first was how much?
First was actually 2 above him. He scored 138. Brandon Newman scored 116.
Without playing in like 9 or 10 games.
Yeah. So I was looking at that.
I got a quick question before Andrew has to go. So I saw this on the match board the other day, and they're talking about if you had one 3-point shooter from the Matt Painter era that you got to pick to take the game-winning attempt, who would you take? So we're looking at like Ryan Klein, Dakota Mathias, Sasha Stefanovic, Ryan Smith, David. I'll throw David Teague in there since he was more of a Katie player.
Ryan Klein was my initial reaction before he started listing everybody off. I was Ryan Klein.
Yeah, Ryan Klein. I think it's the Tennessee game, but I think it's Tennessee bias. But yeah, I think Ryan Klein.
Man, I want to say Dakota.
That was my second. I was like Klein initially, and then
I mean one of those two. And I don't know if it's just because Klein saved his Tennessee game. I don't know if it's not fair to him to hold us against him. I don't know if it's the missed free throw against Virginia.
That free throw I was thinking about the other day because I know Tanner, we've talked about in the past, especially after that game specifically, was I hope it doesn't taint my my
right. Remember
about Klein.
Yeah.
I have not thought about that free throw in so long. Like whenever I see Klein, like
I think about it every time I see him.
So that was just me, but I was like, every time I've seen him, I was like, man, so I was thinking about the other day, I was like, I forgot, like I didn't forget, but I was like, that's right, he missed that free throw. I remember like thinking like, I'm never gonna forget that free throw, like I'm never gonna like forgive him for it. Because I was thinking, I was like, man, people are gonna like, think about that, because I was thinking about Ivy, like how this one game is gonna really, when he gets drafted, there's gonna be people, Purdue fans talking about like, well, hopefully he doesn't have 9 turnovers or 6 turnovers in the NBA like he had last game at Purdue, like stupid crap like that. But I think it's just one of those things where time heals all wounds.
It's just one of those things. It's not fair because if it wasn't for him, we don't win Tennessee. But when I think of the Virginia game, I think of course, the heartbreaking last 5 seconds and Carson going nuts. But in that moment, I remember when Grady got the free throw or got the rebound and gave it to Klein to get fouled. Everybody's going nuts. I see old Purdue fans hugging each other, like everybody's thinking we're going to the Final Four.
I had the moment of like, holy crap, we're gonna do this.
I remember telling our friend of the podcast, Monty Hoffman, out loud, he's got to make both of these. I said a lot of times this year he hits one of two. He's got to make both. Hits the first, and I'm like, okay, he got the hard one out of the way.
Yeah,
and then he misses the second.
Yep.
And like you said, I think a lot of Purdue fans don't remember that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I do. Maybe I'm the pessimist of the group. I need to be more optimistic. So, yeah. So, yeah.
There was that another question we've seen, and Andrew, if you need a dip, you can. But there was a question posed by Jake Query on Indianapolis broadcaster.
Yep.
Who is the best Purdue player to play 4 years at Purdue? Which first you think, oh, it's Big Dog or Mount, but it's like, no, this guy's didn't play 4 years.
Joe Barry Carroll.
Yeah.
1980 consensus All-American, led Purdue to the Final Four. I mean, what he's second all-time Purdue scoring, first in blocks and
rebounds.
And first in rebounding to this day.
Yeah. Obviously, none of us were a thought when Tanner, our dads were in college then, and there's some stories about that. But it's like he still holds these records all these years later.
Yeah, it's but besides him, then you can get in a real good argument.
Yeah, I think okay. Let's think since we've been born 92 on. Who do you think?
I got to go with Etuan Moore.
Yeah, Etuan was my first.
Yeah, Etuan.
Oh, I don't have a
Had you asked me,
I thought I did.
I mean, yeah, I think him, Juwan, or Robbie could throw, but Etuan, the one who was probably talking about the least out of the three was he was just looking back, he was just so solid.
He was still in the NBA this past season.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's had the longevity of the NBA. I mean, Juwan was the first round pick, but Robbie even had a longer NBA career than Juwan.
Mm-hmm.
And now Robbie's finding his niche as one of the best college basketball commentators. But no, you can make argument for all three of those guys. But I just think Etuan was so smooth, underrated, top 5 in so many different statistical categories at Purdue. So, good question though. I mean, Rick Mount came to mind, and I forgot he only played 3 years of the varsity.
Yeah.
So, and Andrew had to log off. So, but we appreciate him, of course, being a contributor to this podcast all year long.
Oh, I meant to ask him a question. Dang it. I was going to ask him if Purdue were to get Nigel Pack, which if he listens back to this podcast, he can answer. Yeah. I'm not sure if he will or not. Is he more excited about that? He won't. So I'll have to text it to him. Would he be more excited about that or the Thad Matta hiring at Butler?
That's an interesting question. I want to know his answer.
As we all know, Andrew's torn and his wife hates it. He's
we're getting him away from his wife to answer this question, because if his wife's by, he's going to answer Thad Matta.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'll have to text him. That's a hell of a hire. I did not think that was going to be.
It's an interesting one. It's definitely a home run hire from a marketing and PR standpoint and publicity.
Absolutely.
I mean, Matta is a good coach. He's been out of the game a little bit, but we'll see. Is he in this for the long run? Is he in this? Is there a long-term plan of him maybe becoming an AD and in 2 or 3 years, and it's a bridge hire to get the program back on the right footing? There was rumors he was going to be the AD and then hire Bowles from Ohio, or he was going to be the associate AD for a year, hire Bowles anyways, then become the AD. So I don't know. Interesting move. After being at Indiana on their what was he?
He was like assistant athletic director, like the basketball. I don't know. It was a weird title. I'm not sure. I don't know what he did. So collect a paycheck and have an office.
Second go around to Butler. It'll be interesting. It's it definitely will up their recruiting game. They were kind of falling way behind, not only Purdue and Indiana in terms of in-state recruits, but Xavier was coming in and getting guys in the backyard. So
it can make things interesting because obviously, the kids today, they were young when we had those dominating recruiting classes at Ohio State, but still, you can still point to the history of multiple Final Fours, the amount of guys he put in the NBA, which is what all these kids want to do.
Yeah, that's key because he could even try to sell Butler making back-to-back Final Fours, but it's kind of like Indiana talking about Butler's way more recent, but it's kind of like Indiana talking about their 5 dusty banners.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done for me lately? A lot of these
Yeah.
kids were really young, back in 2010 and 11 when Butler made those runs. So,
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting. I think being someone who lives in Indy, it's could be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get snag some tickets because I think it definitely. I mean, it got me excited just for the state of basketball in Indiana because like it's we talk about like crossroads. For the last couple of years, it's like Purdue was the best team, but then you had like maybe Butler, maybe Notre Dame, and Indiana kind of were like Indiana had their moment when like they got Romeo when they were hot for a second, and then they fell off the face of the earth. But it's just kind of like, man, it'd be really cool if we had the crossroads now with that, because it could be some really fun games. But hopefully, we Gavitt games, we could see Purdue Butler play each other. I'd love to see Purdue at Hinkle. I think that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I love a home and home.
Yeah.
Same thing with Notre Dame. That movie said we were young when Butler made those Final Four runs. That's true, 18 and 19. So
yeah.
But yeah, with Mata going to Butler, I mean, you got 3 pretty darn good college basketball coaches in the same state: Matt Painter, Mike Bray, and Thad Mata. So.
I mean, look at the Big East now. You've got Thad Mata, you've got Jay Wright, my favorite coach besides Matt Painter. Ed Cooley just won National Coach of the Year.
Shaka Smart. Marquette. Sean Miller coming back to Xavier. He's dirty, but he's a good coach.
Yeah, he's a good coach. Yeah. I mean, Sheen Holloway is making an appearance now at Seton Hall.
Yeah, he's going from $260,000 to $2.6 million.
Yeah.
Can't throw Patrick Ewing in there. He's got awful.
I mean, the name wise, yes. I mean, like the name
wise, but my lord, he can't coach.
No. Then you got McDermott out at Creighton.
Yeah.
So it's I'm missing anybody.
I don't know who St. John's coach is.
I can't remember either.
You got some Mullen. That doesn't go well.
Yeah, but you got some pretty solid coaches in the Big
Butler
East.
need to do something. They're falling behind in the Big East big time.
Yeah, I was worried that they were going to do a release, because I mean, we talk about like Purdue family, which I guess we haven't really done that a whole lot with basketball because we only had 2 coaches in our lifetime. But they're talking like maybe do it like inside the Butler family. It's like, man, you just had one and it didn't work out well, which sucks. Like, you hate to see it because it's like a really good player becomes a coach, but you have to cut ties, and it's like, does that really shatter the relationship a little bit? Which is weird because he now replaced him with his coach, which because I saw a picture of Mata coaching LaVall Jordan. But I mean, I was interested to see what they were going to do with that. Because it was like, man, it's bad now, but it could get a lot worse if you mess up this hire, because it could get really, really bad. But
it'll be interesting to see if he can get him going again. I mean, he's only 54 years old. He'll be 55 in July.
Yeah, which
he's pretty young.
Yeah, I was talking with Andrew about this over the weekend. It's like, I thought he was 60s or easily.
Yeah. You could tell the stress of the job was getting to him, because when he resigned at High State, he was only 49.
Yeah.
So he looked like he was a lot older.
Which there's talks that maybe he was actually forced out versus, actually resigned, but who knows?
I don't know. Holtman's one of those ones. I mean, he's a good basketball coach, but where's the noise on him for not getting far into the tournament?
Maybe benefits of being at a football school. People don't care as much. I mean, I heard,
because we're hearing from Underwood all of a sudden at Illinois.
Yeah,
but they're at a basketball school over a football school.
Yeah, they are. I was listening to a Goodman and Hummel podcast. I think it was like last year, of like how apparently Ohio State's the job that Archie wanted really badly. And I think that could be a job maybe he was better at, because you don't have when we go to Indiana, it's a basketball school. I mean, it's basketball and nothing. I mean, soccer is really what they're really good at. Yeah, but it's like, if he could maybe gone to Ohio State where the spotlight's not as bright on the basketball program, maybe he could have done a little bit better versus, which is, it's funny because he took the Indiana job, and then Ohio State surprisingly opens up it was like the next week or something crazy like that when Holtman got the job.
Well, that brings up a quick fun game I want to do. I don't know why. Let's go through the Big Ten schools, see if they're more basketball or football.
All right.
And we'll start with Illinois.
Basketball.
Indiana.
Basketball.
Iowa.
Basketball. Ooh, no, football.
I think football.
Yeah, I was seeing Fran first thing about football, 100%.
Michigan.
Football.
Michigan State.
Basketball.
They are basketball, but they've had a lot of success in football too, which is, right away you want to say basketball, but that's more really recent.
Yeah.
Last 2 decades. Minnesota.
Football.
I think so. That's a tough one. That's kind of like a coin flip, but I think it's football.
Yeah.
Maryland.
Basketball.
Yep. Northwestern.
Football.
Yeah, because they only made the tournament once.
Yeah.
Nebraska.
Shouldn't
Yeah.
exist.
No. Yeah, definitely football.
Yeah.
Penn State.
Football.
Yeah.
That was going to be interesting. We're talking about Butler. I thought I was going to be interested to see if they were going to reach out to Shrewsbury or not.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have, but that'd have been interesting. I don't think they would have paid him what Penn State's probably paying him, but
right.
Sorry. Go ahead. What was next
Wisconsin.
one?
I think it's football, but it's pretty
I was going to say football. Yeah.
They were so bad before 2000 in basketball.
Yeah. But they were also really bad in football for a long time until
That's
Barry
true.
got there.
Yeah.
But I think, football, they're more consistent in football.
Purdue's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I missing?
Ohio
State's football. Yeah.
Rutgers.
God.
I
think football, but I don't know.
Yeah, just because the birthplace of college football, that's the only reason why
they got up to number 5 in the country when Ray Rice was there when we were in middle school.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's probably the toughest one because it's just they're so bad at both typically.
Yeah. I think I named them all.
I think you did, yeah.
Just trying to do it off the top of my head. But no, that's interesting. I think there's more football than there are basketball, or it might be about split 7-7. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up season 4 of the podcast?
It just sucks that it ended the way it did.
It does. It did.
And I mean, it always sucks when it ends, but
at least we had a lot of fun things from August through March to talk about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
as a whole was the most fun topics we've had to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, football ended up having, started out kind of rough, but then,
sure.
Obviously we won 9 games, which is crazy.
Knocked off 2 teams that were ranked top 3.
Basketball had the whole offseason hype behind, Jaden Ivey coming, not even testing the waters, which is kind of weird to crazy because he probably would have gone first round. It would have been late, but it wouldn't have been lottery. But that whole offseason, then having the fun that we had against North Carolina and Villanova and Connecticut, being number 1 for the first time in program history, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where it's very unfulfilling because we didn't get really any hardware for it. Right. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun. It's been
do you think there'll be more hype going into the football season or basketball season? That's a question I haven't got to ask for a long time.
Yeah. I think it really depends on who we get in the portal.
Yeah.
Because right now, if Wade is right now, I'd probably say football just because
there's a chance we could be ranked top 25.
Yeah.
I don't think we will, but
it's also just the problem with football. It's I mean, it's we haven't done since 2000, but it's your basically your goal is just to get to the Big Ten championship at that point, which is versus basketball. It's so much greater heights, but it's also a lot easier to get there and easier in quotation marks than basketball than it is football, just because usually the cream rises to the top pretty easily in football.
It's just this, and I know we lost David Bell, George Karlaftis, a lot of other key playmakers, but we're still returning a lot of guys, including a 6th-year quarterback who had a heck of a season last year and ended the season on a tear. And maybe that's the hype I'm putting into it. On paper, call me crazy. There's no reason Purdue can't go 9-3 if they stay healthy, or maybe even 10-2. And oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah, I mean,
on paper.
On paper. I was listening to the Golden Black podcast and said that the top 4 receivers were out.
I know, and all the defensive backs.
So it's who we're gonna have on the team? Because are we gonna have a Milton Wright? I hope we do.
Right.
But I think football will, just because, and it could be just because recency bias. I think just the free fall from the basketball season of the highest expectations we've ever had, probably to just when it ended in disappointment, just utter collapse. And then I think a lot of people are going to be jaded from it. So I think it might just be we'll see what happens. I think part of it is because we're going to be so young. It's just going to be let's just see what happens, sort of thing. Like no expectations. But now if we get like a Nigel Pack and maybe we get another good guard, maybe that could change.
Sure.
Maybe when we see like a preseason poll or preseason,
Sure.
it's like, Purdue's, one of 3 teams that is going to win the Big Ten. It's like, okay, that might, get some people excited again.
And it might depend on how the football season's going come October or November. And in football, another thing is our first game of the year is at home, Penn State, Thursday night on Fox.
Yeah,
that's a big one. I mean,
So like I think that'll be the environment should be phenomenal for that. But it's like if we come out and get waxed, it's gonna be like well, when is basketball season start?
100%. Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting. And this will conclude our last episode of season 4. I mean, we're gonna take a break, but we'll be gone all summer long. I mean, we might pop up with an interview or definitely a trivia game. We're hoping to get another trivia game going.
Transfer news pops up, we might try and maybe hop on a pod, talk that or any big news that comes up.
Yep, I know some of our podcast members were gonna be going through some things. Andrew's moving states and gonna become a dad, so the schedules might be tough to correlate, but we'll figure it out. And we want to say thank you to all 4 of our sponsors who are on board again this year, and that's Mad Mushroom. They got the April Pizza of the Month right now, which is the Mad Maui in the multiverse of Mad Mushroom. Love the name. It's their cheese sticks dough. Yes, their cheese stick dough, not pizza dough, based with garlic butter and topped with ham, bacon, pineapple, mozzarella, and cheddar cheeses, and finished with a barbecue swirl that starts at $14. Their Pizza of the Month always sound good, but that one might be my number 1 I've read this year.
Yeah, I might have to make a trip to West Lafayette for some lunch.
Then we also want to thank the shop who was on board this year for the first time ever. They come out with great products, whether you're a fan of the Boilers, the Bulldogs, the Cardinals, the Hoosiers, the Pacers, the Colts, Indiana culture as a whole, the Office even. They got a lot of awesome T-shirts, always have good deals.
Yeah, May's coming up in Indiana, and that's a huge month for the state. And
How could I forget about that?
Yeah, they crank out some awesome shirts for that. They do a lot of cool stuff for the race. So they pretty cool stuff. You go to their website, shopindy.com, enter code breakdown to get 20% off. They're actually moving locations for their Carmel location. So if you're ever you're gonna be moving out of Clay Terrace into more of the city center in downtown Carmel, if you're familiar with the area, they still have their location in Broad Ripple, but they will be moving Carmel locations. But I've talked to some people and they're pretty excited about the move. So it should be pretty exciting to see. They're always coming out with new designs. So they'll probably cool on some of the college stuff for the summer as things die down. But I mean, when football season backs up, they usually crank out multiple new designs for the football season. So I'm already excited to see what designs they come out with.
New players could sign on to with them come fall, and heck, if Purdue ends up with Rob Fincey, you could see Rob Fincey have a Purdue shirt on there instead of an Indiana shirt.
I've already got the tweet in my head if that happens.
I love it. Also, thanks to Webb's Family Pharmacy, locally owned community pharmacy in Rochester, North Manchester, and Akron, Indiana. If you live in northern Indiana and looking for a pharmacy, not happy with your current pharmacy, please give them a look. They have all of your pharmacy and medical equipment needs just like a bigger pharmacy would, and you won't find nicer people that can help you. So give them a look for sure for all of your pharmacy services. WebRx.com is their website. And thanks to Sroufe Landscaping Nurseries. I did see on Facebook today they are looking for some help. So if you're looking to get in the job force, you're looking for some employment, have some landscaping background, don't have some landscaping background, but think that's something you might be interested, give them a call at 317-694-9763. And they are hiring. Of course, wages and hours and everything will be discussed with how much training and everything you need. So thanks again to all 4 of those sponsors of our podcast.
Quick before we go, who do you got, Carolina or Kansas?
Kansas 77-70.
I think Kansas too. They are impressive.
Carolina's hot, but I think Kansas is just a better overall team.
Yeah.
Hate them both.
Yep.
With that said, let's have an eventful, positive offseason, not an eventful, negative offseason. Let's boiler up, hammer down.
Yeah, our players aren't driving 90 mile an hour down a main road on middle of campus. So at least not yet. Knock on wood. Hopefully that happens. But
well said, Webby.
Yep. Boiler up, hammer down.